What's up? Matt Urch from Urchfab. In this video I'm showing you how to weld an open diff without causing it any damage. Alright, so I've got a diff here which is stripped out of its casing. This isn't going to be the way that you're going to do it, I wouldn't imagine. It's going to be still within its diff casing, might even still be fitted in the car. The reason I thought I'd do the video with it out is because you can see exactly how this all goes together, how it all works. And if you've got a bit of an understanding of how it works, then you're going to have a better idea of how to actually do the best job on it, because every diff is different and there's lots of different ways you can weld this together to keep it all locked solid. And depending on what the diff is for, there's going to be easier ways to do it on some diffs than maybe others. So I'm going to show you every single way that you can weld these to lock them up, and then you'll be able to just pick the easiest way of doing it for whatever diff you got. Alright, so this is our open diff, and this you got your shafts coming in either side, or this is the output to the drive of each wheel. So we need to lock the whole thing across from one side to the other. So you've probably seen people do it by just tacking in each four corners of the planet gears, but there's actually loads of places you can weld this out. You can weld the gear straight to the casing down here. You can weld the gear to the casing in there, same at the top. You can weld this gear to the inside of the casing in there. You can also weld the gear to this shaft across the middle in there. Just a fixed shaft, any place that's going to stop the gear from spinning. If you weld, personally I think you want to have the gear welded to the casing at some point, because all we're trying to create is this output shaft being locked to this casing completely. So the more points you can connect the gears to the casing, or the gears to the gears, the more strength you're going to have in it. When it comes to the actual welding of it, I would go with whichever areas have the best access to actually get a weld in. So rather than saying, oh, I'm going to weld it to the casing all the way around, because if this was assembled in the car, you might not have good access to this bit here. So you might be better off welding to the casing here, welding the two gears together in this corner, and then maybe welding to the shaft as well. And just a combination of everything to lock it all together. You don't need to just do one method, because if you're trying to get the welder in somewhere you can't really get into very well, that's when you end up with a load of weld spatter. And you risk getting a weld that's not very good. It could break loose, and that's why people will quite often weld a diff and then the diff will fail straight away. It's because something's come loose, or even just the spatter from the weld has ruined the actual gears in the diff. So a couple of bits in here you definitely don't want to weld. If you're looking in there, you can see where the shaft is coming down. So the cross shaft connecting those two smaller gears, you can weld those gears to that shaft, but your actual main drive shaft, you definitely don't want to be welding anything anywhere near that, because obviously that's got to be able to come in and out. Depending on your diff setup, you might have some sort of pins in there that hold the ends of the shafts in. So like I say, it's different for every diff, so you're going to have to just pick the best method. So this is the crown wheel and pinion. Basically, you know, this goes from your drive shaft. You know, this is what's driving your wheels, if you like. So the important thing is to protect the teeth on these when you're welding. Like if you get spatter stuck to all these and then this goes through and grinds it away, you're going to just damage the teeth and your diff will be ruined in no time, which is normally what happens when people have problems with welding their diff and then the diff breaking. So you've got to do everything you can to protect these teeth. So what I do is you're going to be able to sort of wrap the top edge of this in a rag, because the diff's going to be like poking through like that. So you're going to be welding in here. Bits could be dropping through onto the back of the teeth on here. So you can cover the top of it with a rag. But if you use some anti-spatter weld spray, this will stop any of the like beads of spatter sticking to the bits you don't want them to stick to, or getting in the bearings or anything. So you can spray it all down with that. Obviously you'll be able to spray that right down inside the diff. But before you do that, you need to clean all the oil out of here. Right, so you're going to want about 10 cans of brake cleaner, and then you're just going to try and get as much of the oil out of all the gears that you can and the areas that you want to try and weld. Got that pretty clean. I'm just going to give it a blast with a blowtorch just to dry it out. Some brake cleaners are they've got a chemical in them that if you weld through it, releases some toxic gas. I think that whatever that chemical is isn't actually used in the UK, but probably best to check before you gas yourself to death. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to weld every place in here that you can weld, just to show you all the different places that you can actually weld it solid. Alright, so I've got this gear welded to the outer casing here, both these gears welded to the outer casing either side, this gear welded to this casing. I've got these gears welded to this centre shaft, both ends, and then I've got all four gears actually welded together in each corner of the gears. So you don't need to do that much, but the point is that if you can't get the torch in to this to weld these gears here together, then do them up here if you can get a better angle at the torch, and you're less likely, because the worst angle you've got to get the torch in there, the more chance you are of getting all this spatter in there, and there's little bits of it which you can see here. So you want to try and chip any loose ones off with a file, and then get a little magnet and just stick the magnet in and around in there, and try and get as much of that out as you can, because all it takes is a few of those to get ground up in the crown wheel and pinion. That is what eventually will, ruin your diff. So if you can stick to the areas that you are able to get the torch in at a nice angle, you know, get a nice clean weld, it's not going to weld very nicely because you've got cast parts, these are hardened, it's not going to weld like you're welding two nice pieces of mild steel together, but you are going to be able to get something that's strong and solid and not going to snap off. You know, I've done loads of these, never had any break. I've seen people where they'll cut a square rectangle of steel and just sit the rectangle of steel in there and then weld that rectangle to all the gears, which it's not a bad idea. That's not something I've ever done. I always just do it like this. Alright, so I've got basically 10 welds in there, connecting all the gears together and connecting the gears to this outer casing. You know, you'll be doing the same on the back as well. So potentially there's 20 welds could be done if you had the diff out. What I'm getting at is you've got a load of options there. You can just pick the best ones of those options for your diff, whatever you can get to the best. Clean all the casing out afterwards, get a magnet in there, get all the little spatter beads off everything, make sure there's none stuck on any of the teeth, and yeah, you'll be good to go. Right, so that's how to weld a diff. If you follow that, you should be able to weld your diff up and the diff not destroy itself shortly after you've done it. And yeah, that's it. Cheers for watching. See you next time.